Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining myself and Deb this morning. I hope you're well on this fine February morning. For those who don't know me, I'm Tim Kellett from Paydata, and I'll introduce Deb in a minute. And thank you very much for joining today's webinar to talk about benefits. And so today we've got some slides and lots of stats and information. We will send the slides out and contact details afterwards, so you don't have to make too copious notes on everything. Just a little bit about Paydata, those who don't know us. So we are a reward management consultancy. We help organizations find, attract, motivate, engage the right sort of talent and people to meet their objectives and to be successful. We range in doing, obviously, pay benchmarking, pay data, job evaluation, reward strategy, a whole range of different topics and things. But one of the things that we do a lot of is provide business insights and research down at the bottom there. And part of that is providing and organizing these webinars. And this is the third in our batch of New Year webinars. And this topic around benefits came up a lot in our autumn HR workshops, and so that's what we are talking about today. And I can talk a little bit about benefits, but we brought in a real expert with us today, Deb Sussex, who is an employee benefits specialist with over 15 years experience. And Deb helps organizations with sort of change projects, specifically looking at benefits, benefits design and implementation, benefits change and communication projects as well. So I'm delighted to have you here with us today, Deb. It's great to see you. And Deb is going to talk us through this really interesting topic, which a lot of people are focusing on at the moment. So today we've actually collected quite a lot of really useful statistics and information through our January Pulse survey around benefits, and we've shared the results with Deb, who's had a look at them and provided the benefit of her expertise. So I'll just pass over. So Deb's going to cover that, what sort of key challenges organizations are looking at in this sector, how to overcome those challenges, what the sort of innovations on the benefits side are as well. And so a lot of today is around Deb presenting that. And then I think we thought it would be really useful to open up the discussion to everyone joining, just so you can sort of share experiences, ask Deb questions, have the benefit of her experience. Today we've got an hour and we'll have a hard stop, so I'll have to call an end to it by 11 o'clock, so that everyone can no doubt get on to their next meeting. So that's enough of me. I'm going to pass straight on to Deb and the expert, as I said, and over to you then.
Great, thanks Tim. Thanks for that great introduction as well. So thank you for everyone for joining today. Yeah, as Tim said, I'm an employee benefits expert. I've been working in the area for some time now, and I really help organisations understand what they offer and why, and really help them to improve it and make the changes they need to. So I describe it in quite a simple way. It's incredibly interesting and challenging, hence the topic that we've got today. And around this time last year, we held our first employee benefits webinar with Paydata. And in that session, we talked about best practice, we talked about why review your benefits. And this session, after hearing from you, as Tim described, we wanted to concentrate on challenges. Because on one hand, thinking about best practices is fantastic, but there's a lot of work to do before you get there. So it can be more realistic in a way to think about the challenges and your present challenges and what to do about them. So that's our focus for today, and that's primarily because it was something that you all raised. As Tim said, we're going to start with setting the scene for today. And we're going to look at the very recent results of the Paydata benefits survey that many of you participated in. And there's some really, really interesting stats coming through. And let's take a look at those. Let's jump in. There we go. So the top survey headlines on which are your most valued benefits within your organisation: healthcare and pension. Healthcare, probably not a surprise, because that has been one of the most talked about benefits, I would say, for the last 3 and 4 years. The second is pension. I'm personally thrilled to see pension on sitting at that number 2 level. My view of why it's there at number 2, why it's most valued by your employees, is because of all of the hard work that organisations like yourselves have done to ensure that more education and communication and encouragement has been invested into pensions to help individuals realise how important they are and why they're so valuable. So I think pension being at number 2 is a real plus point, and a huge pat on the back to all of you that have been involved in those kinds of projects. Which benefits receive the most scrutiny? And this is interesting because we're going to talk about challenges shortly, and this is where those challenges can start to begin. Benefits that receive some positive viewpoints, but those that receive the negative viewpoints as well can start to create some concerns and challenges. And you can see here, I won't read through every point, but you can see here on the positive side, on the left, healthcare and pension, and that perfectly aligns with the previous slide. So that makes sense, perhaps no surprise there. But what's really interesting is that those 2 items appear on the negative side of things as well. So the benefits that we're receiving the most positive feedback about, we're also receiving the majority of the negative feedback about as well. So these items are appearing on both sides of the spectrum. And we need to think about that and think, why is that? Why is this benefit appearing to be very, very positive but negative at the same time? And we will talk more about that in the session today. It's again really interesting that some of the other benefits in here again appear on both sides as well. So yeah, let's just hold on to that thought shortly. When was the last time you reviewed your benefits? And you can see from the text here on the side that benefit reviews are happening really regularly, which is great news. The majority of you are reviewing at least every 12 months, which is fantastic. However, we know that the challenges are still there. So although benefits are being reviewed regularly, nothing's changing, or not enough is changing to remove some of those challenges or address some of those challenges. So again, I think this, in terms of headline data, is really interesting as well. Lots of time and resource being invested into reviewing the benefits, but what's coming out of the review isn't perhaps generating the impact that you wanted. So again, we'll think about that today as well. And moving really nicely then into key challenges. So we asked you in the survey what were your key challenges when thinking and reviewing your benefits and managing your benefits. And here's the top 3. So cost, I'm sure there's no surprise at all, or almost half of you felt that that was the key challenge regarding benefits. And when we think about the actual cost, or the employer's cost of providing the benefits, you know, healthcare and pension, which we saw were 2 of the most popular benefits. Of course, not all of you may have a health plan that you contribute to as an employer, but of course you all will have a pension plan. Those 2 benefits generally are the most expensive benefits on your balance sheet. So the cost concern is very, very real when it comes to these benefits, in addition to managing them, managing the increase year on year, and so on. Employee fit, ensuring that your benefits are actually suitable for your employees and engage your employees and provide the right level of choice. So that was the second key challenge that you're experiencing. So my view on this data on this slide is probably the top three reasons that are coming through. Perhaps they're not a surprise to us, but what's again really interesting is that if we ran this survey a year ago or 5 years ago, and if we run it again in 5 years' time, I'm sure those top three reasons would be exactly the same. So again, the challenges seem to be consistent, and we're not able to actually tackle them in the way that we want to, which moves us perfectly into our session topic for today.
And those challenges definitely have come up in our autumn HR workshops, Deb. You know, definitely that cost, that communication. It's interesting. We're doing a lot of work on the total reward statement side, so more people wanting to communicate the value, seeing how important that is as well. So, yes, as you say, it's how to overcome them. Then, so
absolutely, and this is the hard part. So I think understanding what your challenges are is the easier part of the process, and then you're hit with this brick wall of, okay, we're so overwhelmed, or cost is cost. What if we have no budget? What on earth can we do? So I think this is a really key part of our session today. So starting with foundations. And foundations that's my personal term for setting up the right environment for your benefits and the right environment for your benefits to be a success. So the foundations would be, what benefits should you provide? So do you have an appropriate list of benefits? Are they at the right level? Are your policies and processes and communications, do they exist at all? Are they strong enough to withhold the benefits that you want to provide? And will your policies and processes allow you to provide the benefits in the way that you want? Understanding which benefits are valued and used. And a key piece on cost, are you aware of all of the costs of your benefits, not just the employer portion, the employer contribution towards the pension or the health plan, for example, and what the employees are, but all of those additional costs that you see as an employer, costs of your brokerage arrangements, perhaps cost of any additional communications expertise that you might have. So really understanding that full cost of benefits. And the way I describe the foundations are that what we've just talked about here are principles that would be consistent across every organization. So every organization should have processes. Every organization should have a list of benefits that they offer, perhaps even if they're just statutory. Every organization really should have a view, even a basic understanding on which benefits are more valued than others. So the principles of the foundations will exist or should exist in each organization, but the amount of weighting or priority that you place on each foundation will differ for your specific organization. So you may need to, for example, place more effort in your foundation that supports communications, for example, or it may be, and that really depends. A lot of this will depend on the culture of your organization. So the foundation should be consistent. However, the priority that you place on them will differ. So you can tailor the foundations to your specific organization. And having all of those foundations in place and understanding them properly will really set the scene for and ensure that any benefit changes that you make or enhancements, you're going to have a success from the outset because you've got your strong foundations in place to begin with. And ensuring that you have those foundations will support you in the future. This slide here primarily talks about how the foundations will support you from a cost perspective. And I drafted the slide in that regard because cost was the most the biggest challenge that we saw, almost half of you saying that that was your key challenge. So this slide really focuses on how having the right foundations in place and strong foundations in place will support you from that cost perspective. So ensuring that your foundations and the data that you have will allow you to understand if what budget that you have, however small or large that may be, that you know that that budget's being put to good use. You know and you can understand what you're spending and where, and then align that with the impact that that particular benefit is having on your employees and having on the organization. So you can see where you have a high spend and a low impact, or low spend and high impact. And that's really, really helpful. And understanding that and having that level of understanding yourself will really help you when you're talking to your stakeholders about your benefits provision and about your budget. In those occasions where you need to ask for more budget, having this kind of understanding will really help you. You'll have the robust facts and figures to strengthen your discussions, to be able to realign budget where needed, and hopefully be in a better position to request more budget if you need to. The second biggest challenge that we talked about was the differentiation. So ensuring that your employees are engaged with your benefits and have the appropriate level of choice, and that they can see that there's something in the provision that they would like to have. And this is very difficult because employees now have very, very high expectations. Aligned to that is the sheer volume of choice that is available, not just within your organization, but your employees will be aware that their friends, their family, and the other organizations that they work for might receive this or that benefit, or it's provided to them in a certain way. So the amount of choice that's possible in the marketplace is huge. That encourages your employees to be more demanding than ever. So it can be very difficult. And when thinking about how to ensure that your benefits have the right level of perhaps choice and flexibility to be able to meet all of the needs of your employees, again, think back to your last benefits review and what kind of review did you actually undertake? Did you look at and actually talk to employees about what they value and what they would like to see in the future? And talking to employees and stakeholders about these types of things is very difficult. It can be difficult because there's a concern that it would raise expectations. So it does have to be managed very, very well. And again, it will depend on the culture of the organization as well. But that's a really important step to understanding and hearing directly from your employees about what they would like to see in the future. It will also help you re-level and review your foundations as well, because it might be that you have a fantastic suite of benefits, but perhaps the policies or the communications, the processes don't stand up in the way that they should. So again, talking to employees about what's important to them is very helpful. When you are ready to launch benefits or relaunch benefits, or remind employees of what's there, reinforce to them the level of choice that perhaps you already have in your organization. It's really important to search for opportunities within your organization of how you can showcase your benefits. So perhaps there's initiatives taking place within the organization, special events, wellness initiatives, for example, initiatives for new parents, initiatives for men's health, and you can link all of those to your benefits that you already have today and really provide as many opportunities as possible to embed the benefits that you have within these initiatives. Also, it's really helpful to think about the changes that are happening within the organisation and what benefits you have already in place that might support that. And to keep things fresh, to keep things up to date, even perhaps if you're not in a position where you can keep introducing something new, it's always really good to make plans for short, medium, and long-term approaches, because that really helps you remind your employees on what's there. So perhaps every 4 months or every 6 months that you've then got a message that you can bring to your employees about your benefits. So perhaps even that your benefits might not be brand new, there's still a story that you can provide your employees. There's still something worthwhile that you can share about your benefits to your employees. I would also say keep linking back to your foundations all the time as well. It's really important. So all of this work that you do should never be a one-off project. It should always be part of your monthly and weekly benefit activities. And linking back to the foundations is really important with this piece. And we should almost think of this as we do with pensions governance for any of you that are involved in that. And pensions governance is really around, does the pension plan that we have, is it driving the best outcomes for our members or our employees? And we should think about the foundations of our benefits and benefits governance in exactly the same way. Are the benefits that we have, are they driving the right outcomes, not only for our employees, but for the organisation as well? It's important there's that balance. And if when you look at your foundations, if the answer to that question at any point around driving the best outcomes for the employee, for the organisation, if the answer to any of those points is coming back as a no, then they're the points that you need to revisit on your foundations and improve on. So for example, if you've got a health plan, and I picked this as an example because on one of our previous slides, we saw that the health plan was coming up with very positive, but also very negative feedback. So if you think about your health plan, that could be a benefit that you really want to showcase within your organisation and use that as a key benefit to ensure that you keep your benefits up to date and relevant for your employees by linking that to perhaps your men's health initiative that's coming up. But before you do, think back to those foundations and the member outcomes. If there's some negative feedback around the benefit, and actually that's around, might be payroll processes or communications, then those are the parts for that benefit that start to become your foundation and what you need to work on to improve, to ensure that that benefit's working really well for you in the future. So yes, lots of work to do here, and really important that as I said, that these activities become part of your regular work that you do with your benefits. Okay, we'll take a quick pause there. Lots of items that we've talked through that we can bring back into our discussion in a short time. So all of your questions and thoughts, please hang on to those, and we will we'll certainly enjoy hearing from you during the discussion. Before we move into that discussion, we'll just have a quick change of topic and look at innovations and trends. We did this last year in our webinar. So we've got our 22 and 23 data that we can look at, and then we've layered the 24 on top. I think it's really helpful. It's really interesting to look at trends, what continues to exist as a trend, what's disappeared completely, and we can take a look at that.
Yeah, this is always coming up, Deb. You know, people say, what can we do which sets us apart? What innovations and trends are in there? So I think a lot of people find this fascinating. So
absolutely, yeah, and I think it's innovations and trends. It often comes up because organisations want to stay on top of all of this, and they want to understand what will help them stand out. They want to know if they do not do something, will that mean they fall behind everybody else? Organisations are often looking for that one thing that they can do to set them apart from everybody else. So the things here that we're looking on the screen, the background data is from the 22 and 23 session that we ran, and then the blue boxes and the text in the blue boxes is what was coming through from very recently from our 24 survey. So a lot of the trends still exist. You can see that on the right-hand side. Lots of support on the left-hand side in terms of women's health, very, very important and continues to be so. But yeah, the trends, pretty much all of the trends are still ongoing, and we were not hearing from 2024 about anything different to this. There might be some very unique things that certain organisations do. And what's very important is time. So holiday, in terms of having more holiday and flexible holiday, buy and sell arrangements, continues to be extremely important. But also when we think about time, it's how employees, not how much time off employees have, but the time in work and how that time is managed. So that flexible working piece, that's where this comes in. That's still extremely important, hybrid working. So over the last 12 and 24 months, we've been seeing real shifts on this. Obviously, during COVID, everybody that possibly could was working from home and continued to do so for quite some time. And then we had a shift in employer thinking where lots of employers were really encouraging employees to come back to the office. And that was felt as really important from a cultural point of view, especially with newer organizations or startups, understandably. And now we're seeing that the hybrid working is now coming back as being extremely important as well. And so I think it's about organizations and their employees figuring out the balance that works for them. A lot of that, of course, depends on the job itself and if that can be done from home. But where it possibly can, there's still a huge, very high employee expectation that employees will be given the autonomy to be able to have that hybrid working where it's possible. So organisations are trying to, a lot of organisations either are already doing it or trying to figure out that balance that suits everybody. So I think that's really important from this slide.
Yeah, I think a few people in our HR workshops, Deb, have mentioned about that hybrid working, the flexible working, and yeah, I think a few have got some challenges where you've got employee expectations a certain amount, and then you've got the employer expectations, and trying to find a meeting in the middle of some kind. And so definitely, it's still a key topic for some organisations, definitely.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing here is health. So that's a very strong trend and links back to everything that we've been talking about today, because the health benefit was one of the most valued. It was one that was receiving lots of positive and negative scrutiny. So the health benefit is probably the hot benefit at the moment in terms of what employees want, but also what's a challenge to provide, obviously from a cost perspective, but making sure it's offered in the right way, it's communicated well, it's payrolled well, for example. And that's a really good example, actually, the health benefit, and I think why it's the hot topic. The health benefit is also one in which you can probably have the most variations of in terms of design. So when we were talking about the foundations, when we were talking about keeping the benefits up to date and fresh, this is a very important benefit. Whether you're offering it on a employer funded or voluntary basis, it's still very important, because the sheer number of benefit providers in this space is large. So you've got a huge amount of providers that you could possibly select from. But from within that, the actual number of different designs of health plan that a provider can offer you is also huge. And some of them can do very different things. They will also cost very different amounts as well. So this is a great example of I would describe this as the hot benefit at the moment. And it's one that can be not overlooked, but one that you think, okay, we need a health benefit, let's broker one, let's get it in place quickly because it's what our employees want. And my advice would be, don't rush, take your time. Again, revisit the foundations. It's a very important benefit and can be a very complex one. So certainly the hot topic in terms of benefits at the moment, I think.
I concur with that, Deb, and particularly what you really reinforced what you said about the cost. You know, as you said, a lot of people have mentioned the premiums have gone up a lot this in the last 12 months, naturally because more people are sort of taking up the benefits as well, and so that's obviously from the employer's focus. That's why they're focusing on it. So I think it's really good, sage advice to say, look, before you make any changes, just really be very careful in how you consider, given its importance, the employees' place on it, and consider them carefully. So no, thanks very much for that. Okay.
Okay.
Right, on to the open discussion. So thank you very much, Deb. That's some really helpful trends and information that you provided, how to meet the challenges as well. I'm going to stop now, just going to stop the recording. So because I think